There are some foods that seem perfectly ordinary until you stop and think about where they actually come from. Take bamboo shoots. If you've eaten Japanese food, there's a good chance you've had takenoko before. It might have been mixed into rice, simmered with other vegetables, served alongside a meal, or perhaps you've encountered the pale slices of bamboo shoot that come in a can. It's one of those ingredients that can easily disappear into a dish without attracting much attention. But a fresh bamboo shoot is a very different thing. For one thing, it's not really growing where you might expect. Before it becomes the tall bamboo we're familiar with, it's hidden underground, and if you want to eat it at its best, you have to find it and dig it out at exactly the right time. So, on a recent trip to Aichi Prefecture in Japan, I had the opportunity to do something I'd never done before. I went into a bamboo grove to dig for takenoko myself. As I found out, this is considerably more difficult and considerably more interesting than simply walking into a forest and picking a wild fruit or vegetable. Coming from a country that doesn't have natural bamboo trees, the first thing that struck me when we arrived was just how cool the bamboo grove was. Tall bamboo stretched in every direction, and at first glance it seemed almost impossible to imagine that there was anything to find that was down on the ground. Takenoko literally means bamboo child, and the name makes a little more sense when you see one emerging from the ground. These are the young shoots of the bamboo plant, harvested in spring before they have had the opportunity to develop into mature bamboo. And that timing is extremely important. Japanese cuisine has a very strong appreciation for seasonality, and takenoko is one of the classic foods associated with spring. The idea isn't simply that an ingredient tastes good when it's fresh. There's a cultural appreciation for eating things during the relatively short period when they are naturally at their best. Takenoko is one of those foods that people look forward to because, before long, the season will be over. I had heard all of this before we went out to dig, but it was only when I was actually standing in the bamboo grove that I started to understand what it meant, because finding one isn't particularly easy. We started looking carefully at the ground around the bamboo. The shoots can give you a subtle clue about where they are, but there always isn't necessarily anything obvious to tell you that there's a delicious vegetable sitting just beneath your feet. You begin looking at the shape of the soil and the little changes in the surface. You watch for signs of a shoot beginning to push its way upwards, and once you have an idea of where one might be, you start digging. This is where my romantic idea of simply wandering around through a bamboo forest and collecting food came to an abrupt end, because there is actually quite a bit of work involved. While there may be specialized tools for professionally harvesting bamboo shoots, we were just using basic small shovels. The key is that you have to dig down carefully around the shoot without damaging it, if you can. The deeper you go, the more you start to appreciate just how much of the plant is still underground. And because you can't see the whole thing, you're essentially working by feel and by experience, which I had none of. The key is to get underneath it so that you can lever the whole thing out. I found this surprisingly satisfying, partly because you never quite know what you're going to get. You can spend several minutes digging and finding that the shoot is smaller than you expected, or that you've approached it from the wrong direction. And then suddenly you expose a little more of that pale, tightly wrapped shoot and realize you've actually found one. If you buy a bamboo shoot in the supermarket, it's very easy to think of it as just another ingredient. Once you've spent time and energy digging through the soil to get one out, you become much more aware of the fact that this is a living plant that has been growing underground, and if you didn't harvest it and left it alone, it would become something truly spectacular. And this is one of the reasons takenoko has become such an important seasonal food in Japan. The history of bamboo in Japan goes back a very long way, and bamboo itself has traditionally been used for an enormous range of purposes, from construction and household objects to crafts and cultural tools. Bamboo shoots became an important spring ingredient as well, and over time, particular growing regions developed their own reputations for producing high-quality takenoko. One of the most famous areas is around Kyoto, particularly the western part of the city, and neighboring areas such as Nagao-Kakyo and Muko. The bamboo groves there are carefully managed, and the cultivation of takenoko has become a highly specialized agricultural tradition. These groves aren't simply left to grow wild. Farmers carefully manage the bamboo, the soil, and the conditions around the plants. In some traditional cultivation methods, straw is spread around the ground, and additional soil is used to encourage the development of particularly tender shoots. The result is takenoko that is prized for its texture, sweetness, and relatively mild bitterness. By the time we'd finished digging, we had several shoots sitting on the ground in front of us, and they looked quite different from the bamboo shoots you normally see in a supermarket. They were covered in soil and wrapped in layer after layer of tough outer leaves. They didn't particularly look like something you'd want to put on your dinner table, but underneath those layers were the parts we actually came for. And there was still one important step before we could eat them. Freshly harvested takenoko isn't something you normally just peel and eat raw. One of the reasons for this is that the fresh bamboo shoots contain naturally occurring compounds that can produce a strong bitterness. Traditionally, they are boiled and prepared before being used in cooking, and that preparation is an important part of the process. After that, the tender interior can be used in all sorts of Japanese dishes. And this is where takenoko really starts to make sense as a food. The flavor is fairly delicate, so Japanese cooking doesn't necessarily try to overwhelm it. Instead, the shoot is used in dishes where its texture and subtle flavor can be appreciated. It can be simmered in dashi and soy sauce, or grilled, fried, added to soups, or cooked with rice. One of the best known preparations is takenoko gohan, where the bamboo shoot is cooked together with rice so the flavor of the shoot becomes part of the whole dish. It's a very different approach from the way we think about an ingredient like this in the West. Takenoko isn't necessarily there to dominate the dish. Its appeal is partly in its texture and in the fact that it represents a particular time of year. And that idea of seasonality is important enough in Japanese food culture that there is even a specific concept for eating ingredients when they are at their seasonal peak. Shun. Takenoko is almost a perfect example of shun because its window is so limited. The shoots begin appearing in spring, and the harvest takes place over a relatively short period, and then the season is done. In Kyoto, for example, locally grown takenoko is closely associated with spring and has become a particularly prized regional food. So there is a slightly unusual relationship between scarcity and anticipation here. You aren't necessarily eating takenoko because it's the most intensely flavored vegetable in the world. You're eating it because it's spring, because the shoots are fresh, and because in a few weeks you won't be able to get the same thing in the same way. Overall, takenoko isn't really a story only about bamboo. It's a story about the relationship between food, place, and time. We tend to think of Japanese cuisine in terms of sushi, ramen, tempura, and all the other dishes that have become familiar around the world. But some of the most interesting aspects of Japanese food culture are found in the ingredients that have never become famous internationally, and takenoko is one of them. So, if you've never thought much about takenoko before, perhaps the next time you see bamboo shoots on a Japanese menu, you'll look at them a little differently. What are your thoughts on bamboo shoots? Like them? Hate them? Have no idea what I'm talking about? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it and this channel with anyone you think might enjoy them. Till next time.